y'all, I'm Tammy, and my husband Chris is videoing, and this is Collard Valley Cooks, where we cook like our mamas did. Nothing reminds me of my granny more than a good old pound cake. This is my favorite pound cake recipe, and she used to make pound cakes for us when we were kids. I'll tell you a little story about that later, but as for now, trust me when I tell you I made a lot of pound cakes, and this one is my favorite. I hope you give it a try. We're making it in a loaf pan today, so you don't have to make a real big one. Let's get started. This is a really nice light pink Anchor Hawking pan, and we're going to use it for our pound cake. And I'm just going to grease and flour this since we're just making an old-fashioned pound cake. We'll go all the way out and do it just like Granny did or Mama did. And then we're going to flour it. By just putting flour in there. And then I just let it run across the edges. Like that. After I get it good and coated, I just put it back in the flour thing. There you have it. Now, if you don't want extra flour on it, just come over here and tap it on the sink, and that gets rid of the extra. It is good to see everybody today, and me and Chris are in the kitchen making my favorite pound cake. We're going to have this recipe and make it in a loaf pan today so that we don't have a ton of cake, and you're going to love this recipe too. It has shortening in it and butter, and a lot of people want to substitute the shortening for butter, and you can do that, but I won't tell you, the shortening makes it taste really good. I would leave it in there if I were you. It's not going to hurt you. My granny lived to be 90 and she ate shortening every day. All right? She made biscuits every day with shortening. All right, we're going to start this out. When you do a cake, you always start out with your butter and sugar or shortening. Now, we're going to use a half recipe, so we're going to be using 6 tablespoons of butter, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about that much. A little bit more than a third. So you're going to use 6 tablespoons of butter. If you got my Volume 1 cookbook and you want to mark this up so you can make a loaf pan size, just put, sometimes it's kind of hard to think about how much is half of something. And on the 3/4 cup of salted butter, you can mark it for a half recipe to be 6 tablespoons. And that way you'll know what to measure. Okay, so there's our butter. We're going to use a half cup of vegetable shortening. We're going to mix these two together, and I'm just using a hand mixer today since we're not making a real big cake. Now we're going to add our sugar. 1½ cups of sugar. And when you add your sugar, you can start adding your eggs one at a time. All right, we're going to add 4 eggs one at a time. Mix it in between. Starting to look like cake mix. Easy peasy. A lot of people won't make a homemade cake because they think it's hard, and it's not hard at all. Now, if you don't have your eggs at room temperature, you can put them in a glass bowl like this, and then run you some really hot water in the sink and set that bowl down inside the hot water, and it'll bring those eggs to room temperature a lot quicker. And that way you can make your cake faster. All right? I had to do that today because I didn't have any out. We just decided this morning to make this cake. Now, some people add their salt and baking powder and the flour to a sifter, and they sift it. I'm not doing that today because I'm using white lily flour and it's pre-sifted. If for some reason you've kept it in the refrigerator and it's lumpy, then you do need to sift it. All right, but I'm not going to have to do that today. So I'm going to put in my salt, a half teaspoon, my baking powder, a teaspoon. Now, the recipe calls for vanilla and almond flavoring, and it has double the vanilla than it does the almond. I'm going to use vanilla, butter, and almond, so I'm going to use a half teaspoon of each one for this half cake. So there's a half teaspoon of vanilla, and you don't have to do that. You can use all vanilla, all almond. It's according to what you like the best. You can throw a maple flavor in it, whatever you want to do. Butter, and of course, if you want a lemon pound cake, you can add lemon. Coconut, whatever you want. There's all kind of flavorings that make a cake taste good. All we've got left to do is put 1.5 cups of flour. So there's 1, 2, and then we'll put in 1 more once we mix this. Those are half cup scoops. And a pound cake's a little thicker than a regular cake mix. We just need 1 more of these. Now, when I was growing up, we'd be out playing in the yard. My granny lived down the hill from us, and we lived in Collard Valley, and she just lived right down at the end of the driveway down the street. Well, it wasn't a street, it was a road. And we would always go down to her house and play. All the grandkids loved Granny's house. That's where we congregated. And we would play out in her driveway and in the trees, and she had one of those mimosa trees that had the real pretty pink blooms on it, and we could climb it. And we would use the little seed pods and pretend that they were money and rocks for change. We had the best time down there. And all we had to do is go in and say, "Granny, will you make us pound cake?" And almost every single time she'd say, "Yeah, I'll have it ready directly." And then we would go in, she'd call us in and tell us her pound cake was coming out of the oven, and we'd all get a piece of hot pound cake. And Granny always made this size pound cake in a loaf pan. Let's get this beautiful batter in this gorgeous loaf pan so we can have a nice, delicious treat in a little while. Now you can eat a topping on it, a fruit topping. You can make a peach topping. I've got a recipe in my same cookbook that tells you how to take frozen peaches and make a nice peach topping for this cake if you want to. But if you're like me, you like it just like it is. I love pound cake, warmed up, buttered, and toasted under the broiler. Chris does too, don't you, Chris?
I like it for breakfast.
Yeah, he broils his for breakfast. We just slice a piece, butter it with butter, put it under the broiler. Boy, is it good with coffee, ain't it, Chris?
Delicious.
Now, we're gonna get this in the oven, and the full pound cake cooks 40 minutes at 350, and then you turn down the temperature. and cook it longer. But now I don't think it's going to take as long to cook this one. So we're just going to cook this one at 350 degrees because I like it brown. And I'm going to set the timer for 40 minutes and we're going to check and see if it's done. Get this in here and I'll let y'all watch it rise. All right, we baked this at 40 minutes at 350 degrees, and then I turned it down to 325 and baked it 20 more minutes. So it was a total cook time of 1 hour. And I did use my cake tester. This is my little cake tester that you can get online. And you can tell when you put it in there it's good and done. And it's got a nice crunchy top, which I love on a pound cake. And we are going to go ahead and flip this out and eat it. Because I love pound cake when it's hot. So what we're going to do is flip it out on this parchment. So the smallest part of the cake will be sitting on my plate. Because you can tell the top part's wider and the bottom part's smaller. So let's flip it out. And then I'm just going to flip it over on top of this. I love the crunchy part, so you don't want it to sweat on the top. You want it to stay crunchy. I kind of smashed it, y'all, but that's all right. All right, we're going to slice into it. Start on the edge. Now it's hot right now. It's nice and soft, and this part is a little bit, typically, the top to me is the best part of a pound cake. And this is my favorite pound cake of all. It's very soft, and just absolutely delicious. All right, now for the favorite part, eating the end pieces. The top is a little bit chewy, and so is the ends on this cake. It is so good, y'all. That is delicious. This cake is so good. It does not need a topping. I promise you, it is delicious. You're gonna love it. A lot of y'all don't need the extra sugar anyway. So make you a pound cake and you'll be in heaven if you make my favorite pound cake in our Volume 1 cookbook. We'll see you next time on Card Valley Cooks, where we cook my favorite pound cake like my mama did. Bye, y'all. Love ya.
Cooking time, it's over now. Tammy, she just showed you how to cook it up like mama used to do. So go on.